Hello, everybody, and welcome back. We didn't have class last time, but I posted a video on the calendar for 2 days ago for the color correcting. So if you are missing the color correcting, just go to the previous calendar day and watch more detailed color correcting. I'm going to do a little color correcting right now just to kind of show you a real quick way that I would get the shots in this project to match a little bit better because there's definitely like this shot is a lower contrast shot than this shot, just the way they were shot. See the highlights on the side of his face are a lot brighter than they are on hers. Um, the light's also coming from a different direction, so like we're actually not getting as much of a side angle of the light here as we are here, but that's definitely still brighter. So we want to try and make these look more similar. And I think the blacks, like this black point on his shirt, is getting a little bit darker than this black point on the wall here. So I'm just going to add a little contrast to this one and maybe set the white balance so that they're at a little bit better place for these two shots. Now I'm going to click on my color correcting workflow. And then that brings up Lumetri Color, which is kind of like baked into the architecture of Premiere now. Even though when you work in Lumetri, it shows up as an effect for the clip. I am going to color correct this using the master. So this is my multi-camera clip. So I'm going to just kind of go through one by one. I'm going to start right. I'm going to start with this one. This one was shot with the same camera that we shot that angle with. But so if I just move my mouse over and highlight, it highlights this clip. In my Lumetri color panel, I need to make sure that I select the master clip. And that means that the color correction that I put on this clip in the timeline will actually color correct the shot in the project so that anytime I use the shot, it'll have the color correction done. So I don't have to do it for every single instance of it on the timeline. I clicked on color for the workspace. Yeah. And then just with this highlighted, with this clip highlighted down here, it brings up the Lumetri settings for it up there. So again, it re-highlighted the instance of it in the timeline. So what you do with the master version, so if you're going to do the master correction, that's the place for your like primary color correction, where you just kind of neutral, make them all neutral looking. Then if you're doing stylized stuff, you would do that in your timeline so that you can, make it go crazy. But these highlights are already crazy. I'm going to go to my source and click on Lumetri scopes so that I can see the scopes. And why am I not seeing scopes here? There we go. There. All this stuff right here is super blown out. See, it's just like riding way up at the top here. So what I might do is go into the basic. Why is that? Does that keep coming up like that? There we go. Is I might go into my exposure settings and try to bring down the exposure so I can get a little bit more of the detail back in the wall. See how much I just kind of got back just by doing that. This is kind of getting blown out to here, but if I pull my exposure down slightly, then I get a little bit more in the wall up to right here. And then whites, if I pull the whites down, it doesn't really give me any more detail. So that tells me that this shot's definitely overexposed. Although if you look at her face here compared to the other shots in the scene, the exposure is pretty similar. So let me just pull the blacks down a little bit so that I can set a black point that is a little bit lower. I don't know why this isn't happening for me anymore. What am I not understanding? Here. Master. This is weirding me out. Oh, sorry, I was pulling on the wrong one. I meant to pull on this one. Okay, so set the blacks down a little bit. Maybe the shadows down slightly, and then, hold on, this is not, okay, yeah, it is making changes. So this camera actually already shot it with a little bit higher contrast, so I don't need to really add any contrast. Can see what happens if I bring highlights up a little bit and then bring my shadows down slightly. Okay, so that's okay. Now let's go to my white balance selector. There's nothing in this scene that's white, to be honest, unless we can sample the white up here. So I might get my white balance from a different shot because there's not really anything in here that's white. Although I will say this is probably, the whole scene's probably slightly to the green side because we were shooting under fluorescent lights, which are green. The white balance was set at 4500, which is pretty close to what a fluorescent light would be, but I'm still just gonna like pull this down this way to try and get, just to cool this off so that it's not so orange looking. All right, so that looks okay. And the way I can kind of test my before and after is I just turn on and off my basic correction. And it looks a little bit better. It's still not tremendous. It's probably not the best shot to start with. But now that I have that set up, if I go into my effects controls, I now, under the master clip, I have Lumetri color right there. So I can kind of use that white balance and all that stuff as a basis for the settings for the next clips. So I'm going to go to the next clip in the timeline, this one, and I'll show you the magic trick. So this shot, this clip in the timeline right here, it's highlighted, is the same shot as this clip in the timeline. So if I do this correctly and I adjust the master color corrections for this clip, it'll also correct this clip. So let me make sure I'm telling you the truth. So I'm going to select this clip in the timeline, go up to the master tab, and then I'm going to just Command V, paste it in there. Okay. So I can turn that effect off by turning on and off the FX button here. See, this white of the wall looks like a better white, and it's actually kind of making his skin look a little bit better. The wall is not actually white. It's a beige wall, so you wouldn't want this to be white because that's supposed to be beige. But you would want this part of the light fixture up here to look white. So if I go to my scopes, hopefully this bright stuff up here will be fairly balanced. It looks like everything's slightly blue because if you go to these highlights over here, that's what this stuff is. If this were totally balanced white, this red, this green, and this blue would all be in the same spot. Let me show you what I mean. So if I go over here and adjust my color temperature to right there, see how they all kind of like went together and now they're white? So if I was neutralizing the white balance for this, that's the white balance right there, negative 14.6. So I can go back to my previous shot and correct that again. So go here, corrected. See that? It's because I did it to the master. So if I go to my effects controls, master, Lumetri color. So now let me copy this Lumetri. So Command C, I'm just going to select it there. I'm going to go to the shot of her, go to the master tab of her effects and paste it in. So we got some more work to do on her because like that's pretty different looking than that, right? Okay, so we need to color correct this a little bit more. Okay, so I'm going to go to my Lumetri color. Let's adjust this way a little bit more to make her a little bit more blue. I'm going to probably bring these highlights up a bit more. Pull these shadows down a little bit. And then let me go to my scopes and just make sure this looks good. Pull the blacks down slightly. And then I can actually, I brought the exposure down on him, but if I bring it up on her and then maybe drop these shadows down a little bit more, they'll look more similar. Ooh, that's bad. Okay, now let's compare them. 1, 2. Do they look a little bit more like they belong together? I'm going to darken the blacks a little bit more on this. There, that darkened this area up a little bit more. So now this black looks a little bit more similar to this. There's still some greenness in this shot. So let me go up to my master tab again and pull just a little bit. All right, so this is one of those times where if I go to my color wheels and the shadows and make this black look more like this black, the way this is looking green to me, you can't really tell so much in the projector, but this area, these shadows are looking kind of green compared to the other shot. So what I do is in the shadows of my color wheels is I just pull it to the opposite direction from the green, and then that actually helped it a lot. And it's a very slight move. So that's what the extreme move would be. But if something is looking green, you don't want it to look green, pull it to the opposite side of green and it'll make it less green. Same with the highlights. So if your highlights, these are still looking kind of peachy to me. So if this is kind of a peachy color, I can go to my highlights and pull it away from peach slightly, and that'll blue it up a little. See, before, that's the before, that's the after. I just did it to the clip. Dang it. Let's do it here. And slightly to the blue. All right, now the whole shot's kind of peach looking to me. So you can spend a lot of time color correcting. This is why, like, people who do color correcting professionally, they have these boards with like knobs and stuff on them that they can change these settings using actual tools on the table and really dial it in. That way you're not like doing all the clicking that I'm doing. All right, so now we need to get this shot to look like that shot. So because this is my multicam clip, I'm going to do this. I got to double click on this and open up my multicam. Oh, it's right there. So here's a really nice thing. Same camera, same shot, or same camera, same position, just zoomed in a little bit. So if I want this shot to look more like this shot, all I have to do is copy the Lumetri settings from this one. Copy that. Go over to my multi-camera tab and paste that in. And then the same thing with her. So I'm going to go over to her clip, take that. Here's another way to do this. If I select this clip and copy the entire clip, then go into my other timeline to paste those settings. If I hit, or if I right click, get a beach ball for a second. I don't know why these computers do this. It's like it needs to load the program in the rest of the way. Nice weather we're having. All right. Select paste attributes. That will allow you to paste the Lumetri color in. So you can turn all this other stuff off. You know, if the only thing you want is that Lumetri color, click OK. And that went into the clip itself. It was supposed to go into the master. Anyway, you can copy and paste effects. So I'm going to do this quickly. All right, there. Now let's go to this shot. Try to get this one to look the same. Not quite that far on that one. There we go. Nope. All right, I could spend all day doing this, as you can tell. Okay. All right. Let's do titles. Let's make some titles. Okay, first thing we're going to do is create a very, very basic title. And the way we do that is the key command is Command T, and that'll add a new title. Okay, so there's my new title right there. And you can move this around on the screen manually this way to place it. If I go up to my graphics workspace, then there's some like titles and stuff that you can kind of load in from, you know, presets that have been made in After Effects already. So if I wanted to, I could like drag this graphic down. It's missing some stuff, but woo. Okay, so you can go into After Effects and you can create your own title templates, but this is what we're going to do today, is just this basic title. And if we go into our editing here, we can select these settings over here under Essential Graphics and change the font to something somewhat tasteful. Avenues, sort of tasteful. You can change the color of it. You can add a stroke, you can add a shadow, all those things. So if you're a graphic designer, all this stuff is probably going to already make sense to you. So I'm going to pick something that will show up pretty well. Make the shadow diffusion a little less opaque. There. All right, and I'm going to use a heavier font. Make it bigger. All right, now if I double click on it up here, I can edit the text. So, what should we call this scene?
New hallway scene.
New hallway scene. Okay. There you go. New hallway scene it is. And then a soft return will deselect the text, and then you can hit V to get your selection tool back and place it. So you have your, you can align this in the center. You can change your paragraph style.
What's the soft return?
Yeah, what's that?
It's the enter key over by your number pad. On your, if you have a MacBook Pro, it's function enter. It's your soft return. So if I have this, my hard return will add another line,
Right.
like another paragraph. The soft return will deselect the text.
And that's the enter key right here.
Yep. And then if you hit V, it'll get you back your selection tool so that you can grab it and move it around.
Okay.
Okay. So the red box means you're still, you have your type tool, but the way I'm activating the type is by double clicking on it. So I don't actually have to select the type tool, but if I wanted to, I could just hit T, and then so if I have my selection tool and hit T, it'll automatically put a red box around that so I can select the text. Okay, so and as we can see here, there's it places the title on your timeline as a clip that you can now make cuts, add transitions, and even add animation to it. But we'll do animation stuff in the commercial project. So for now, what I want to do is I'm going to just place this at the beginning of the timeline, and then I'm going to trim this back to be the length of this shot. Okay, so new hallway scene. Beautiful, right? Okay, now I kind of breezed over this briefly last time, but the way you can duplicate a clip in your timeline super easy. So let's say we have more than one title we need to make. If I hold down Option or Alt, when I click on this clip, move it over to the side, and then let go of my mouse first, it'll create a duplicate of that title. So now I can double click on the title. Oops. I can double click on it up here and change it to Web 2300 Presents. Okay. Now I have all this stuff starting right at the beginning of the timeline, but I want to put two titles on black before the scene actually starts. So I can either grab my track select tool with my double arrows, which is the letter A to activate it. So A for all. And I can click on this first one and move everything over. Okay. But here's another little trick. If I select this title, I want the Web 2300 Presents to be on black before this new hallway scene title starts. So I'm going to grab it, pull it back to the beginning, hold down Command, and see all those little right-facing arrows? That means put it here, push everything out of the way to make room for it. Okay? So that kind of like makes it so you don't have to select everything, move it over, and then drop this into place. So Web 2300 Presents. But I'm going to do this again because I'm going to add another title. So I'm going to hold down Option, click, start dragging it to the side, but I'm going to do a double function, and I'm going to hold down Command now as well. And I just didn't do what I meant to do. Hold on. Thought I could do it. Yes, I just didn't. You need to let go of the mouse first. And you need to make sure those sideways facing arrows. So I'm holding down Option, clicking, dragging, hold down Command, let go of the mouse, and it'll create another copy of that title, and then move everything out of the way to make room for it. Cool, tricky stuff. It's fun, right? Okay, I'm gonna do this first title. Call this one. Oh no. That's gonna stay the first one. So Web 2300 presents. What should we call this class? A something production. Okay, so we have Web 2300 presents. And now I'm going to, I feel like I was able to read it in that amount of time, so I'm going to just trim that back to right there. And then give about a half a second of black. So it goes away, comes in, and then goes away, comes in.
How did we get it? How did you do where you got another title scene? Like 2 black screens?
See how I've got it selected right here? If I hold down Option, start dragging it to the side, that's going to create a duplicate.
Gotcha.
But before I let go of the mouse, if I hold down Command as well, then let go of the mouse, I'm doing this too slow, then it's supposed to, it did it before. You guys saw? Whatever. I don't know why it's not doing it now. I did it twice. Then when you let go, it'll make a duplicate. So the other way you can do it is you can create your duplicate and then move it to the side, holding down Command, and then it'll move it over. So you don't, if you're having a problem doing it all in one move, you can do it in 2 moves. Yeah. And you always have your track select tool, which will select everything from the beginning over. So if you want to like make room, you can do that too. All right. So we have some titles. Boink. Dunk. Dunk. Do you guys like them just popping on and off like that, or should we add some transitions? We should add some transitions so we can learn transitions. All right, let's do that. Okay, I'm going to hold my selection tool. I'm going to grab my selection tool, V. And now the key command for the default transition, I say default transition because you can set it, and I'll show you how to do that, is Command D. Okay, so if I have this clip selected, if I hit Command D, it'll add a cross dissolve to the beginning and end of that. All right. Okay. If I have one side of it selected, hit Command D, it'll add a transition just to that side of it. Now let's take a look at the playhead. With nothing selected, let's just go here. I might mess something up here. Okay, with no clip actually selected, if I hit Command D right now, nothing will happen. But if I put the playhead right here and hit Command D, it'll place a cross dissolve on this clip, but it didn't do it on to this clip. The reason for that is these target tracks. Okay. When you turn these blue, that makes Premiere watch those tracks. So it's kind of like when we were placing clips on the timeline using the keyboard, it'll put it on the target track. So if I have both of these tracks selected, hit Command D, it'll add the default transition to anything on a track next to the playhead that's a target track. Okay. My favorite way to add the transitions is to select the thing I want the transition to go on to. Okay. Because I feel like if you're constantly like changing these target tracks, unless you're into some kind of production mode where you're like throwing stuff down really fast, like a slideshow, it's kind of becomes too tedious to make it worth it. So it's good for bulk work, but for these one-off things, it's not really. All right, so now let's go up to our, if I select the left side of this clip, hit Command D, that puts the cross dissolve on there. But right now, that cross dissolve, if I select the cross dissolve itself, let me go back to my editing tab or my editing workspace. And I go to my effects controls. Right now it says the duration is 106, which is a little bit more than a second. So at what point did Premiere decide that that transition was going to be 106?
When it wanted to.
Well, let me show you how to change that. If you go up to your Premiere Pro CC menu and go to Preferences, under General, I think I'm right when I'm doing this. Say what?
Is that just as preset, or did it happen sometime when you were moving the cursor?
Well, in your settings, you can tell Premiere timeline. Okay, video. So if you go to your timeline section of your preferences, video transition default duration is 30 frames. And because we're editing in 24 frames a second, that's 1 second and 6 frames. So you can tell it to be seconds, and then you can tell it to be like 0.5 seconds. So no matter what your frame rate is, your default transition length will always be half a second. Okay. Or you can make it 2 seconds, or you can make it 1, or however long you want it. Okay. So that's where you change that setting. So now I'm going to click OK. If I delete that transition off of there, make a new one, see how long it is? But you can always change this. See this little symbol? The little, it looks like this trim bracket, but it's got the little transition thing in the middle of it. You can just drag that out and make it longer. Okay, so I like to keep my default transitions at 0.5 seconds, even though it's trying to make it 1 second by doing 30 frames. That's just a personal taste thing that I have. All right, so let's make these fade in and fade out. So I'm going to select this one, Command D. I'm going to select this one, Command D, and select this one. I'm going to select this first clip in the timeline and hit Command D to put the default transition on that. And then just to offset the timing of things, I'm going to make this title come in later than the video so that we see some video and then we see a title come in. Okay. I call this weaving. When you start offsetting things like this, like the timing of audio cuts versus video cuts, and then the timing of titles coming in versus clips coming in, and stuff like that, it creates a better flow for the edit for when you're watching it. Now let's take a look at the transitions themselves. If you go to your project panel into your effects, your transitions are kept here in your workspace, in your effects panel. If you go to your video transitions and twirl this down, there are all these different categories. So if we look at page peels, This transition now, you can physically drag this and pull it to any intersecting clip or the end of any clip on the timeline, okay? And that'll apply that transition. Nice, tasteful transition, okay? And again, you can change it so that the transition starts at the cut, splits the cut, or starts before that cut. You can change the length of it by grabbing the sides, pulling the sides out, and make it longer. This will be awesome. Ooh, okay. I just grabbed page peel randomly. All right. Let's say I am a page peel freak, and I use the page peel all the time, not cross dissolve. And I want the page peel to be my default transition so that I can just hit Command D and do page peels all day long. If you right click on it, the only option is select as default transition. That puts a little blue box around that one. And now I can add page peels. Command D, page peel, page peel. Okay, so much fun. All right. But if I go back to my dissolve, go back to my cross dissolve, right click on that, select default transition. Now the default audio transition is Command Shift D. Yes, I did it. Which is, you know, fade in, fade out, crossfade. That's what this is. So remember how I was like, you know, make the cuts in between these audio clips less abrasive. If I select, I'll need to hold down Option probably. If I select this clip, Command Shift D, then that will, I can make that shorter, and then that makes that clip come in with a slight fade in at the beginning to kind of soften the cut. So that's how you soften an audio cut without having to do these envelopes. So either way, it's the same thing. These envelopes are turning the volume down between these two keyframes, and this one's turning the volume up using a transition. Okay, they do the same thing. You just have different control over each of them. All right. Any questions about transitions or titles right now? Okay, that's the basic transition and basic title. Next thing we need to do is add some music to this scene. So let me pause this because I need to make sure I know where your music is. Okay, so the music files that we're going to be using are located on Canvas. If you go to today's entry and titles, music, and finishing, here's the hallway music.zip. Now that's just a link to, if you go to the course, Web 2300, go to the files section, it's this hallway music.zip. Okay, that's where you find the music for this assignment.
Mine downloaded like immediately, just clicking on the link from the.
Yeah, it would go really fast in here because it's like the server is sitting in the other room or something. All right, so in my project, I have my hallway project assets inside the audio. I've got these 3 MP3s. If I had voiceover, sound effects, and music, I might separate that out into 3 different categories, but this is a pretty small project, so I just got these. Now, Premiere can import MP3s, AIFs, AC3s, WAVs. Like the Premiere's, one of their big selling points is that Premiere just brings everything in. It tries to anyway. So if I go to my project, if I want to import that as a bin, I can just hit Command I, go to my audio folder, and just import the whole folder. And that'll import it as a bin right there. Okay. So let's take a look at these. Okay, so see this little green symbol with the little squigglies inside? Those little squigglies are called a waveform. They're like a thumbnail of a waveform. So if I double click on this, there's no video. I have these waves, these sound waves that are the audio file. And the playhead, you can click on this anywhere in here, and the playhead will jump to that. So this is the beginning, this is the end. Okay, so let's just listen to what this sounds like. Okay, nice, right? Some happy-go-lucky music. That didn't work. Okay. Audio, hardware.